Welcome to the Found Her podcast. I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Shannon.
And we are the filmmaker, photographer, and co-founders of Found Her Productions. Together, we capture the essence of women so they can communicate their truth with confidence and ease.
Through working with our clients, we've learned that each of their stories are so unique and, to our surprise, mostly nonlinear. We believe these stories deserve to be heard to inspire women along their own journey to finding themselves and creating the life that they truly desire.
This podcast is where badass, trailblazing boss ladies will expose the ups, the downs, and everything else involved in creating their own path in work and in life.
So sit back, get comfy, and get ready
to be inspired. So, here we are again.
Episode 2.
And so the last one we kind of introduced ourselves and shot the shit a little bit. And so this one, we are talking all things Shannon.
Ooh.
Yeah. We thought it might be fun to just start off the first couple episodes where we go into our own stories before we start introducing everybody else's stories, just so people can get a sense of where we came from and why we feel like we know what we're talking about. So I'm going to interview Shannon today. So Shannon, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you want to start? Start as far back as you want.
Far back. Oh
yeah.
My gosh. Well, this is so open-ended. I guess my story of origin. So I grew up in Markham, Ontario, not far from here, and I was a really active kid when I was younger and got into a lot of different activities, a lot of different, sports, different, took art classes and things like that. And when I was in high school, I got to experience film photography for the first time and developing black and white photos. And we had a darkroom in our school, which is pretty awesome. And my photography teacher was really amazing. Actually, she was actually a professional photographer as well on the side. So I had really great access.
Is that a rare thing?
I think it is rare to have a darkroom in a high school. It's not always the case.
Yes.
And secondly, to have an individual that knows how to use it properly and actually has experience with it, felt like I was really grateful for that because I had a genuine interest in it. Back in my summer camp days, I used to bring my disposable camera.
Nice.
Or a bunch of disposable cameras. And I used to play around with my dad's film cameras a little bit, but they were always automatic, and I didn't really dive into how it really, really worked.
Right. How to manually do things.
How to manually operate it and it approach something with a specific intention and execute it. So I kind of got my feet wet a little bit with that in high school, and started to become very fascinated with how it all worked and the relationship between the shutter speed, aperture, and the ISO on the film and
amazing
and all that stuff. So
I think that dark rooms, I honestly don't know if my high school had a dark room. We're the same age, so it would have been the same era, but I don't think they have them now. I think it's all digital photography.
I actually did I visited my high school a couple of years ago just to do kind of a motivational talk to the art students.
You did?
I got to go into the dark room again. And
they still have it?
They still have it. Oh. And I think they still actually use it. So
really?
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm totally wrong.
Yeah. But you're not, though, because when I went to college, I went to Fanshawe College for photography. And in the year that I went, which was 2006, that was the first year that they completely removed film from the program. It was all digital.
Oh,
that was the first year. So the fact that you would think that schools don't do darkroom stuff anymore is legit, because a lot of them probably don't.
Okay.
I think it's probably more rare at this point.
Got
it's
it.
Even the materials are hard to come by, and you can't just get them anywhere, and they're kind of pricey. And digital photography is pretty amazing for the fact that you basically buy your camera, your memory card, and your lens, and you're good to go, and a computer, I guess.
Yeah.
But you don't really have to continue spending money on film and developing chemicals and whatnot.
Right.
So
that the fact that your old high school still has that is like kind of an anomaly.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of an anomaly for sure. So I'm really grateful that I got to have that experience.
That's amazing.
And that teacher, her name's Miss Fabroa.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out. Well, she was a game changer for me in terms of teachers. So I'm happy to give her a shout out.
Yeah.
She was the one that invited me to talk to the students actually like 10 years later, or well, more than that actually, like 15 years later after graduating. Yeah. And she was so cool. When I was in grade 11, she organized a trip with our school and the art students from our neighboring school to go to New York, and we went to go see like different galleries, and we saw a Broadway play.
That's amazing.
It was incredible. It was incredible.
That's awesome.
And I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to do that and experience that at that age. It was so overwhelming. I remember being like so intimidated by the scene of it all, and just in awe of everything that I was seeing. Yeah, it was amazing.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Markham is a pretty cool place and all, but...
So what is Markham like?
Well...
For those of us that don't know. I don't know if I've ever been there.
It's just, well, I mean, you're probably okay to never go there, I would say, because like if you've been to one suburb, you've basically experienced what it's like in Markham.
It's not really a destination spot?
Not really. I don't know. It's just, I think of it as just like a really, like, it's a nice suburb. It's a nice place to raise a family.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's close to the city, easy to get to. Everything, now that I've lived in the city for a while, when I go back, everything seems so big. Like the streets are so wide and the properties have so much space. And
oh my gosh,
it's just like, I'm like, this is what it must feel to like go to Texas for the first time. Like, where everything's just huge and spaced out.
Yeah, it's so funny. It kind of makes you think like, is this necessary? But I guess if you have the space, why not? Right? We're not. Yeah. You're not like so condensed.
Yeah, exactly.
You're kind of condensed in a suburb, but not like in the city.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah. Anyways, I like Markham. But I definitely like feel like the city has a lot more culture and a lot more access to things that I have a strong interest in. Like basically any type of art.
Right.
Yeah. I actually feel like originally I came to the city because I was drawn towards the music scene here. I just really loved like the intimate shows at the bars and small venues, and it was a really fun place to take my camera. Then sometimes I would just go by myself with my camera because
oh really
yeah
and take photos of shows and
just take photos of shows.
Oh, that's fun.
And sometimes I would reach out to the artists and like send them a couple shots and
really
just say if you want to use these you can.
That's cool. Did they typically like did they ever use them, or how did they respond to that?
Yeah, they liked them. Yeah, so a couple times they were used or just like posted on Facebook or whatever, things like that. It felt like a huge honor when that would happen. To be honest, yes,
that's fun.
Pretty flattered.
What's like the best band that you saw and took photos of?
Oh,
or artist?
That's a good question. I feel like there were a lot of like smaller indie bands that probably don't even exist anymore.
None of them that like had a breakthrough and like now they're huge and you're like, I took a photo of you and that Elma Combo or something.
Oh my gosh. Nothing's coming to mind. I think, well, I think there was a band called, having a tough time remembering the name now, Mookie and the Loyalists.
Oh,
and
okay.
now they're just the Mooks. Yeah,
the Mooks.
Yeah, at this point.
And they still exist?
As the Mooks now,
okay.
Not as Mookie and the Loyalists. So
cool.
That was fun. I thought it was so cool because he was somebody that was on Canadian Idol.
Oh,
yeah,
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Canadian celebrity.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Was he on Canadian Idol before or after?
Before.
Okay.
Yeah. And I actually ran into him at this gala that I attended and maybe had a little bit of a crush on him or something. So if I'm
so you were stalking
honest.
him. You were basically the paparazzi.
Oh my gosh, I hope he doesn't ever listen to this. But
what's his name?
Mookie.
Oh, Mookie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Mookie Morris.
Mookie Morris. Fun name.
Fun name, yeah. Fun name, fun music.
Yeah.
Fun guy.
Yeah. Fun guy. That's fun. So when you were growing up in Markham, at what age did you feel like, do you remember at what age you felt like, I need to be in the city. Like that is my place. That's where I need to go.
Oh yeah, that was like maybe like I was 18 or 19 or something like that.
Okay.
I knew,
so, like fresh out of high school.
Fresh out of high school. I knew that it was like what I liked, but I felt like I needed to do a couple things first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very responsible.
Like I
of you.
needed to go explore London, Ontario for a couple years.
I mean, don't we all? Don't we all need that experience?
I needed to go there and go to Fanshawe and get my diploma there. And the draw for me to go there was that they had a relationship with a school in Australia called Griffith University, which is where I really wanted to go.
Oh, interesting.
But I mean, studying abroad is really costly, so like I couldn't afford to do my whole degree there. So I accepted doing 2 years at Fanshawe in order to like get some credits that would enable me to do just 1 year to upgrade my diploma to a degree at Griffith University.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that place was amazing too.
And so Griffith University is in which city?
Brisbane.
Brisbane. Okay. What's Brisbane like?
It's cool. It's a small city, and there's like I want to say a river that runs through it, and there's lots of bridges. So I used to refer to it as Bridgebin.
Ba-dum-bump.
Thank you.
You need a sound effect.
Yeah. But it was cool. I really just lived in a neighborhood called West End. And
was it in the West End?
It sure was.
Okay.
You guessed
Clever
it.
name.
You guessed it. That'd be pretty funny if it wasn't.
Yeah, it's on the north side. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. West End was cool. It's like a hippie neighborhood, and yeah.
I'm picturing like Kensington.
It's really similar to that, except instead of being like a small grid, it was really just like one strip.
Okay.
Of kind of fun little indie
That
businesses
sounds like
and
a
restaurants.
good place to be.
It was awesome. Yeah, I think like sometimes it's like maybe 10 years ago now that I came back from that experience, and sometimes it feels like it never even happened. Like it went by so fast, and so much was jam packed into that 1 year and now it's just like, whoa, like that really did happen, and some like different things that I learned there kind of resurface all the time.
That's fun. Yeah.
So yeah, I love it when that happens, because I'm like, yeah, no, this really did happen. I did experience that.
And it shifted things for you in ways you're still seeing evidence of that now.
Gosh, yes. It's actually so interesting looking back to those years. I had one class that was called Independent Project, or IP for short.
Okay, sounds like open and...
Exact. It's extremely open, and I'd never really worked with a brief like that before, so I found it a little overwhelming, actually, because the idea with Independent Project is like you create the brief and you execute it. So it's like the teachers wanted you to like push yourself to create a brief that was actually challenging, not just something that like you could have done in like year one or whatever.
Right. So you create the brief, but not for it to be easy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you execute it. And I was in a commercial photography program there. There was a couple different options, and I decided to go down the commercial route. And I chose to do kind of a fashion portrait series that was emotionally evocative.
Ooh,
yes. So that was kind of my concept that I was running with. And oh my gosh, what an interesting experience that was. Because I was living in a country that I didn't know anybody, and I needed a team to execute these projects, and it's not like just anybody would do. I needed like somebody that wanted to model. I needed somebody that was able to do hair and makeup, and I needed clothes, fashion, like style, for these sessions. And then I needed locations and the equipment and everything. So I didn't really think about it at the time, because I was just so gung-ho on getting it done. But looking back, I was like, fuck, I worked really hard sourcing all that stuff in a place where I didn't know anyone.
Right.
Yeah, so I used a website.
Like, kudos to me.
Yeah, like I gave myself a pat on the back. And
That's
actually, I came across that portfolio of work as I was doing some renos recently at home. And I felt so good, because I looked at the images and I was like, oh, I still like these. And you don't always have that relationship with your past work.
No, that's funny.
And like a lot of the projects I did in high school, I actually even just threw them out because I thought that they were shit. Right. And I didn't want to look at them because I didn't want to be like, they just made me feel like shit. So I threw them out.
In high school.
I know. Well, a couple years after high school is when I looked at them and I was like, I don't need these for anything. But I wish I would have kept a couple of them because it's a starting point and I didn't have the appreciation for that at that point. But it's
gosh, yeah.
Yeah, when you look back at those things and you actually have a relationship where it's like, oh, that's actually like a really good attempt or a really good like effort for how much you didn't know
how young you were, how like maybe unevolved you were. Like I think about myself as a teenager, like I was not in touch with my like artist self in any way like I am now, because I didn't really like, I don't know myself enough to like feel confident like expressing that way. So like
that's so relatable.
It's funny, we were talking about this yesterday about like looking back at old like creative work, whether like it's in the field you're in now or not, and just like typically the way you feel when you look back at really old work is like, oh my gosh,
kind of cringy.
Did I think that was good? But really it's like
that too.
I mean we all do, right? And the important thing I think is like to feel like just to like give yourself some love.
Oh, for sure.
And like compassion,
for
right?
Sure.
And just be like, you were young, you didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah.
But you were trying something new.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you were learning a new skill and you were like expressing yourself creatively. Like that is stuff that I think we should like.
For sure. Yeah. I think I was
be proud of.
Yeah. I was looking at it like it wasn't worth keeping for any reason. Like like, you know, when you write something and you just crumple up the first draft and you throw it out. Like
right.
I kind of treated it like that, which was too bad because I think there would have been some meaning to keeping it around and kind of revisiting it from time to time.
Yeah, well, like everything that you execute, like has led you to, you know, like maybe like doing those jobs has obviously you've built on that, right? Yeah. So all of it is essential in getting to where you are now. All of it.
Exactly.
The good, the bad, whatever.
Exactly. And I didn't have any appreciation for that at the time. And through this experience, I've gained that appreciation. And
yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, definitely.
So now it's just kind of like a fun little activity to look back on your old work. And
it is a fun activity.
You were so cute.
You were so cute. And it's actually really interesting too, because it, like when I think about what I'm focusing on working on today, it's actually so similar to that IP project. Not in the sense that I do want to evoke emotion with my work still, but at the time it was really about expressing emotion. And when I look back, it's like, oh, that was so me. Like I was so emo and like, so I guess like a big thing for me or a big theme in my work is like seeing myself. It's a reflection of who I am, really.
Okay.
Yeah. And I kind of like express myself through the subject.
Right.
And that hasn't changed.
Yeah. Maybe just like the emotion has changed.
The emotion has changed. The meaning of the projects have changed for sure. Now they're a lot more geared towards like evoking the emotion that's going to help the person I'm photographing communicate their essence accurately and authentically, right?
Right.
But at the time, like back in the IP days,
that
wasn't so much part of the goal. It wasn't really part of the goal at all. It was more just like, I'm going to ask them to do certain things and then we'll see kind of what happens. And now it's a little bit more intentional, but that comes with experience.
Exactly. It comes with like the IP days experience.
Exactly.
Which is probably why the IP days exist, you know, like those projects are intentional.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Put you out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Oh my gosh. I remember my prof's name, Peter Wani.
What was
Shout out. Peter Wani.
Peter Wani. Shout out.
Yeah.
Shannon loves teachers.
Oh my gosh. Well, I do. I really appreciate them. And he challenged me. Like he really gave me like not a tough time, but like he wanted to make sure that I pushed myself. And I thought that was really annoying in the moment.
Oh yeah, what a jerk.
Like so annoying. Like nothing's ever good enough for you, Peter.
Peter. I just want your approval, Peter.
I know. Validate me, please.
Validate me. And anyway.
But looking back, I'm just so grateful that he did push me. And honestly, he was such a gentle soul about it too. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's good. So what led you to I guess you majored in commercial photography? Like what was your thinking at the time? What were you like picturing yourself doing with that? Be honest. Come on.
Well, okay.
That face says so much.
Okay, all right. This is gonna. Okay. So one of the big things that made me want to learn about photography was the reality TV show, America's Next Top Model. I absolutely loved that show.
Classic.
I never missed it on Wednesday evenings, and like I would record it and rewatch it. And I just loved Nigel Barker, first of all, the photographer on the show.
Okay. Yep.
He's super talented and pretty gorgeous to boot, but
okay. I'm trying to picture him.
I could probably draw his face.
British?
Yeah, he's
right?
British.
Yeah. You could draw his face.
I've looked at it so much.
Just let me do a quick sketch. It's like perfectly, like it could be like a police sketch.
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
That's so
But he's
funny.
awesome, and they had other guest photographers on the show too. I can't remember exactly who at this point, but I just thought it was such a cool, like, job. Like, you get to kind of be one-on-one with somebody in a fashion photography scenario, and it seemed like a really, like, the type of work like workflow that I would actually really enjoy, that would suit my personality and stuff, but also just really loved like the outcome of the projects and seeing like how these people would collaborate, models, stylists, makeup artists, photographer, to kind of come up with this one like shot at the end they revealed, and there was always a winner, and there was different like reasons why people would win and different challenges, and
it's so satisfying to see that shot, isn't it?
It's so satisfying. And I always remember like, no, don't take it off the screen yet, I'm still looking.
Let me just flash it all in, every detail.
You're
right, so much goes into it, so many people contributing different things, including the model and like the makeup artists and stuff, like it's like designers, or like the clothing stylist, the stylist, thank you.
It really captured my attention. I really loved it, and I chose to do, there was the option of doing photojournalism, art photography, or commercial photography, and I chose commercial because that was what fashion fell under.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Fell under, so.
And you know, like, even though now you're not you're not like a technical fashion photographer, commercial photographer, but you can see that showing through in the way you, like, you're still a portrait photographer, which isn't that far off, right?
No, it's very similar skill set.
I always, and you can see that you had an interest in that because of the way that you are able to direct your subjects, which I always find, like, I love watching you do that because it's so. I suck at that, so like I'm admiring it in you.
Oh my gosh!
And you are so good at it. Like you, it comes very naturally to you. You just like know exactly how to pose them to make them look super flattering, and you like at the same time are like putting them at ease and making them look so comfortable.
Oh well,
that's actually like not easy to do.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's a really big compliment. Thank you. It's at first it was not easy. I remember kind of struggling with it and feeling really sensitive about how I would communicate different, changes in poses and whatnot, because the last thing I would ever want anyone to feel is like what they're doing looks bad, or what they naturally like, how they naturally want to pose doesn't look good on camera or anything like that. So it's just, it really was more like, how do I find like the right language and bring the right energy into this so that they feel like supported and like we're just getting to something better, like we're not, nothing's bad about what's going on in front of the camera right now. It's just we can make it better together.
Yeah, and that's like that's a whole other piece to it too, like understanding like the language, so that just like you said, your subject doesn't feel like, oh, like, is she saying that I was like slouching or that I look like bad the way I was sitting like that? Like,
so many insecurities
you want them
come up.
And like, I mean, we know, like, working with women and being women ourselves especially, once that thought is in your head, like when you're in front of the camera, I mean, like it's a nerve-wracking thing for most people. And so like if you get like one tiny little thought of like, oh, did I look bad sitting like that, it's like, it's just like poison your mind for the whole experience. It's so hard to move past that, so you do have to be like really gentle and like really considerate, and you are.
Oh, thank you.
You do a great job at that.
Thank you. I'm if I have IP to thank for that, because before IP I didn't really work with anybody that wasn't like one of my fellow photography students, and at that point you're kind of like buddies, and you're kind of you can joke around a little bit more, or
you're like at ease with each other.
Yeah.
And
you can maybe like not be as concerned about the language, and even kind of like playfully insult each other. I don't know, like
yeah
you know what I mean?
You look like shit, sit up straight, for God's sake.
Yeah, you know, like sometimes it can be,
you can't say that to your clients.
No, it would be too risky with a client.
Yeah.
But like when you have that type of relationship with someone, you're on that level with them.
Yeah,
it's cool, but it also doesn't really teach you how to communicate effectively with the other person's like
totally
everything in mind, basically their mindset in mind.
And the other thing about like with the portrait work that you're doing, like you're not working with models.
No,
like and I mean like models know how to pose, and like they know how to take criticism, and they know how to take direction and whatever, but you're working with people that aren't typically in front of the camera, and like that is a whole other challenge too.
It can be,
right? Like people typically don't know how to necessarily present their body in the best way, because why would you? Because you're not like seeing yourself. It's like it's impossible to know like how you're coming across, right? So that's a whole other part of it.
Definitely
yeah Wow, that's interesting. And so you were in Australia for a year, and then you came home.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I think that coming home from Australia was probably one of the more difficult things in my journey.
Because you didn't want to leave, or?
Sort of. I felt excited to come home and like see my friends and family and stuff, but it was the first time ever that I didn't know what was happening next. And it was.
And how do you do with that kind of thing? Are you like, do you really roll with it? Or are you like, I need to know what I have lined up?
Well, I didn't know at the time, because like when you're growing up, you have everything kind of lined up for you next. Like it's like, okay, you go to elementary school, then you go to high school, then you go to college, then you go to university, then what?
Then it's just a free-for-all.
Free-for-all, exactly. I'm like, where's the establishment that's going to take me for the next few years that I can...
Who will have me now?
Yeah, exactly. And I had it like, I'm like, I don't know what the options even are. Like, I had some ideas of options, but I really truthfully had no idea. Like, in all the things that I learned at school, I didn't really learn how to run my own business and be like a freelance artist.
Okay.
I just learned like the skills necessary to execute
the work,
the way that I needed, and that wasn't part of it. And I kind of thought, like, at the time it was a little bit maybe of a naive thing to believe, but I kind of just thought that like whatever exists are the options, that whatever currently exists are the options. Like, I never thought that whatever exists now was created by somebody at some point, and it didn't always exist.
Okay,
before.
so what you mean is like you didn't think of the option of just creating something yourself to do. It was like, I need to like go and work for somebody, or like work for like a company,
or do a certain thing that's already being done.
Right. We had a camera issues, so can we backtrack just like 10 seconds or something?
Yeah, you just have to remind me, where were we?
We were talking about Henry's, and you were talking about your expectation that you would make contacts and that sort of thing.
Right. Okay. So I worked at, I got hired at the Henry's in Vaughan, Ontario.
Okay.
And to my surprise, I actually kind of enjoyed the sales part of it. I was a retail sales associate.
Okay.
And I kind of liked that. I sort of really embraced it. There's a little bit of a competitive nature to it that I liked. And then I also I kind of was surprised, but people would come in and like ask the people that worked at Henry's if they knew anyone, or if they were someone who would be interested in doing a photography job for them. And I ended up doing some like business portraits that way. I ended up shooting a wedding for the first time that way. Yeah. I haven't seen those photos. I don't know if I want to look at them, but well, they were really happy with them. So that was what mattered, right? That's what
great.
mattered. And like wedding photographers would probably strangle me if I told them how much I accepted for that job, but it was like
not a lot.
It was probably less than 10% of what a good wedding photographer should charge.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of
right?
of the experience. Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah. But I made some money. They got their photos. They weren't the level of professionalism that they would have gotten if they did pay, the proper amount to a proper. So it kind of worked out for everybody in the end, but it was a good experience for me to like kind of learn learn what that process was like,
For
because I
sure.
did end up doing some more weddings down the road, but and got much better and accepted much bigger payments as well. So
Excellent.
it got me somewhere. It got me somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, at Henry's was a really interesting experience. I worked there for almost 7 years in total. After the first year at Vaughan, I went to the flagship store in Toronto, and they had a program for their sales associates called Shooting Stars. And, you know, shooting stars, no pun intended, I'm sure.
You're just training to like shoot celebrities.
Yeah. No, it was, yeah, exactly. No, it was, their program was essentially a salary program for their employees that could bring in a certain amount of profit each year. And it was nice because we were working on commission otherwise. So this is a way to kind of keep your income consistent throughout the year versus having slow periods and like really busy periods of the year.
Got it.
Yeah, so I was a shooting star for a few years, and actually I feel like it was such a good wave to ride because they changed that program, and like I ended up getting kind of I got the option to stay and earn less than what they were giving me as salary, or take a severance package and leave. And that's what I chose.
Thank goodness.
I know it was really interesting. I actually, it's so fucking cool how the universe works sometimes. Excuse my language. But I had been on a,
What did you just say? What?
It's so interesting how the universe works, because I had gone on a vacation with my dad earlier that year, and we were talking about Henry's and how I felt like I was ready for a new challenge and like ready for a new thing. I'd felt that way for a while, but also felt extremely terrified to leave that place that
Totally. I mean, it's like safe, right?
It's super safe. I'd been there for 6 years at that point, and
wow,
that's longer than I ever spent at college or university. And I got like, I kind of developed it became my comfort zone, I guess you could say.
Totally. Yeah. You can see why like people stay in jobs like that for a long time, because
for sure.
God, you really like, you need to have the drive or something to push you out of it, because it's just so easy to stay in it.
Exactly.
Consistent income, it's something you're familiar with.
Yeah. And I kind of was able to get better and better at that job as I progressed. And every year I kind of increased my income by at least a little bit every year.
Yeah.
So I did feel like there was some like growing happening, which is one of the big reasons why I stayed. But once I started to notice that like the only way that I could like grow within that company was just to continue doing the same thing, but doing it better. And then when I realized like this is never really what I set out to do, I was like, I don't know if that's the growth I want to experience anymore. But going back to how the universe works, I was on a trip with my dad.
Right.
We were talking about Henry's and wanting to leave, and on that trip, I decided, okay, I'm going to develop my exit plan essentially, and then a couple weeks after that, I'd been putting thought into it and kind of thinking like, when's the best timing for this?
How did you feel like generally
when I
with
come
that
to that
decision?
conclusion?
Yeah.
Terrified.
Terrified, like just like bad terrified, or like did you feel like like any sort of like excitement, like adrenaline excitement, like okay, what's next? Or was it just like a terrified?
I think it was just terrified.
So what led you to do it then, if it made you feel terrified?
So I think it was the universe being like, this is the right time, because I didn't put in my resignation. They came to me and then said,
okay, so they'd already come to you at that point.
They like a couple weeks after the trip, after I decided I wanted to make my exit plan. I didn't know exactly what was coming next, but I knew I wasn't fully happy there anymore, and that there had to be something out there that would bring me more joy and happiness to do on a daily basis. So I made that decision, terrified, spent some time thinking about it, but before I could even approach them and say, listen, I'm going to resign, the universe was like, we're going to give you the option to leave with severance. Like, they came to me and said, we're going to take you off the salary program because it's being canceled essentially. And you have a choice now to stay and do the same work you've been doing for a lower compensation, which, I mean, ugh, no thanks. If I really loved the job, maybe, but I totally, well, I mean, I kind of was over it at that point. It was never really what I set out to do. And I'd been doing it for a long time. And despite the fact that I was earning good money and kind of seeing that grow year to year, I was like, it doesn't feel meaningful to me. And I know how much I love taking photos, and I know how much how good I feel when I'm doing that, like in my element. And so I was just like, okay, like it was kind of funny because I felt like they approached me like, she's gonna be so upset, she's gonna be so like,
You're like,
probably,
thank you so much for the opportunity to leave. My gosh.
They were like, you have 2 weeks to think about this and sign off on your decision. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll think about it. I really have a lot to think.
So hard.
You know, this is gonna be so hard. And like, I went to the back room and to my locker and I signed right away. And I was like, I could just hand this to them now, but anyways, I knew what I wanted to do right away, and it felt like such a gift because I was then leaving, but I was leaving with a few weeks pay, which is amazing. Like, amazing, to give me a little bit of time to think about like what the next steps were going to be. And I ended up staying until like the end of the fiscal year, and worked really hard to I wanted to show them that I appreciated the opportunity over the time that I worked there. So I didn't want to just like give up. I actually, after I resigned, I still worked there for 4 months after.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was really interesting the way that it worked. It worked out, but I worked there for 4 months after. So I had some time to like get in the headspace that I wasn't going to be working there after those 4 months.
Okay.
And I got the severance at the end of those 4 months. And I worked my ass off and got a sweet bonus. So I kind of like gave myself a little bit of a cushion financially to take that next step. Yeah. And looking back, that was really, really nice. But I want to believe that I would have done it without that financial cushion as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter. Right?
It doesn't matter at this point.
No.
But for anyone who's listening, like, don't wait for the financial cushion. If you know you want to leave, if you know that there's something that's better for you out there, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's good advice.
Yeah, I kind of wish that I hadn't been like, well, when I have enough money, I'll do it. Like, it was like, I could have done it at any point. I really could have, because I wanted it this badly, but I didn't realize that wanting it this badly was like half the battle of getting there.
Yes. Oh my God, it so is. It so is.
Yeah. If you want something badly enough, I've learned that like you'll push through and you'll persist and you'll keep going even when your like faith is being tested.
Kind of the odds are against you. Yeah. Or when you don't want something so badly, as in you know what you don't want so badly. Yeah. Which for you at that time was like, I just don't want to work here.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Yeah. So I
don't know what's next, but
I was kind of motivated away from what motivated away from what I didn't want versus being motivated towards what I did want. And that's something that I've like since like taken it on to learn about, because that's a game changer. Yeah. Like I said, if you want it, if you're motivated because you want it, then that's where the persistence comes in kind of on a more natural and organic level. Where being motivated away from what you don't want, it's such a different experience in my opinion. Yeah. 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 So now I'm kind of like, I try to be intentional about that in every area of my life. Yeah.
Wow. What a great, like lesson, I guess, or like just like a good life experience. I mean, like working at Henry's, like even though you got to the point where you were like, I am so over this, it sounded like a good experience for you, like in a lot of ways. I mean, like you learned a lot, you made some money, but you learned a lot about yourself too.
Both. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It really was an incredible learning experience. And so grateful to have like a background in sales now, because as an entrepreneur, as an artist, like you're selling yourself every single day. Yeah. And gaining concept around that, and like learning how to negotiate and how to value myself really came into play from working there. Yeah. So yeah, it was an amazing learning and earning experience, because the incentive was like to sell and to you know get a commission from it essentially. So that motivated me. I was into that. Yeah, I wasn't so much like I just want to bring in as much money for Henry's as possible, but for me at that time it really represented my independence. So I didn't know it really that clearly at the time. I didn't have such strong awareness around it, but looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what was motivating to me.
Right.
That's what I was motivated towards, was my independence. Yeah.
Cool.
And then once that was established, I think I remember saying to one of my colleagues, like, if I can hustle in here, I can hustle out there. And
love it.
Totally empowered myself to sign that paper, like moments after it was given to me. And a lot of them were there were a few other people in my position, and they were upset when they got approached with that ultimatum, I guess. And they had a really tough time making that decision. But ultimately, every one of us that were the top earners in the store, we all just left to go do other things. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. I kind of think, to me, it's an interesting story. I don't imagine that everybody would find that interesting, but I think just because of the personal evolution that I've allowed myself to notice, that's kind of, that's what I think makes it interesting, and maybe worth someone else listening to and learning from as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that story probably exists in so many different ways for different people. Yes. Like it represents a point in your life where you shifted, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So the next chapter is what happened after you left.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you hustle it?
I honestly, it was again like one of those periods where I didn't know I didn't know what was next. And it was like, I guess I do need a vision to feel good, because I didn't have a vision. I was kind of just like, well, I'm a good person and a good enough photographer. Something will come my way. Like, I'll take what I can get, kind of thing. And that was my approach initially. And I did a lot of different things, like assisting photographers, shooting things that I didn't really want to be shooting. I also took on, after Henry's, a couple different jobs that have nothing to do with photography. Like, I worked at Snakes and Lattes as a board game cafe, like just because I could get that job easily because a friend of mine was a manager there. And
did you have to do like board game knowledge training? Because the people that work at those places are like, it's wild.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. There's
much they know about
there's
like
1,000 board games there,
and you just have to be able to explain any one of them at any point.
No, not necessarily. Actually, they have somebody on staff called the game guru, who that person.
That is a job
and
position.
By choice, that person, they love board games so much, they just have played everything and they know how it works.
I wonder if like in your life you're like, I love board games so much, there's got to be a job out there for me, and then you end up finding a job that's called the game
Snakes
guru.
and Lattes is like
just like, this is it.
The Henrys for board game people. It is
so funny.
Yeah, it was fun actually. I did have a lot of fun working there.
Favorite board game?
Oh, I love Ticket to Ride.
Like, that sounds so obscure. Never heard of it.
That's so funny. Board game people would be like, oh my God, I can't believe Ticket to Ride is her favorite.
Ride, it's embarrassing.
Yeah. Seriously, you get bored after like playing that once. No. I honestly loved it. I feel like I'm very good at it too. So that's probably why I like it so much. But I had a lot of fun working there, but it really didn't have too much to do with photography in any way. Although something that was cool about working there was there were a lot of other artists that worked there.
Just trying to get a paycheck going.
Trying to get a paycheck. Yeah, they were super flexible with their scheduling. So working part-time for them was ideal for a lot of people who also wanted to kind of push something else forward, use another part of their schedule to push something else forward. So I ended up getting hired by some of the people that I worked with to do portraits for them at that point. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And while I was working at Snakes and Lattes, I had kind of become more aware of the fact that I could create a business and do like have a niche in whatever I wanted. And I didn't understand that before, but I can get into that in a minute. But while I was working at Snakes and Lattes, I was launching, like I was just in the very early stages of this portrait business that was really important to me. So working at Snakes and Lattes, like even though it was unrelated to photography, I was like, I have a huge appreciation for this because it's like keeping things stable for me, or giving me an opportunity to keep things stable for myself, while I'm developing this other business and
Right.
seeing what can happen with that.
Yeah.
So I had a huge appreciation for it, and I really loved a lot of the people that I worked with there. They're really cool, and I got to learn about board games too, which I thought was fun.
Nice little bonus.
Yeah. And another thing I did
God,
was
I love board games. I really
love
do.
them.
Yeah,
Gotta
I
love
do.
them. Can't trust anyone who doesn't.
That is something to live by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had another like really random job where I painted like interiors for a summer just to earn some cash and again stay afloat while I was kind of establishing a strong foundation as a freelance photographer.
Right.
And along the way, I ended up coming across a mindset coach who you're familiar with at this point. I'm going to give another shout out to Catherine Farquharson, who I just, you know, like the way that we came across each other was just like so random. It was so random.
Like you weren't looking for her.
I was not looking for her. And when the person that like wanted us to meet described what she did, they described her as a photography coach.
Okay.
And I thought like maybe I can get like some like lessons to like maybe really perfect like this portrait taking skill and learn how to like set up the foundation of my business properly. Little did I know it was completely
Not
different. We had a couple calls before I signed up to work with her, and what it ended up being was mindset coaching. So very like it's not relevant. Sorry. It's relevant to everything. It's not relevant to photography specifically.
It's not specific, like industry specific in any way.
Yeah, which...
That's so funny. I think like it's probably a good thing that she was described to you as a photography coach, because if she was described to you at that time as a mindset coach, you probably would have been like, what is this hooey shit?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know me pretty well at this point, and that is exactly how I would have felt about it. And there was a lot of resistance actually to sign up to work with her, but she was so confident that what she had to offer would help me in exactly the way that I wanted. So that confidence like was what sold me on kind of working with her. And over like just like the first few weeks of working with her, I like realized that I'd been undercharging for such a long time and was able to like quadruple my prices and in a really short period of time, and then learn about like the laws of attraction and how important it is to be myself to attract people that are in alignment with what I'm offering and what I'm capable of. So it went really deep, like way deeper than I thought it was going to. And I'm still in that coaching program like 3 years later. 3 years later.
3 years later.
Yeah. And it's a continual investment in myself and in my business. So I'm like more than happy to be like paying for this service. And I'm seeing the return on it. So, that was pretty amazing. But working with her, I realized that, I could do what I wanted, and that wasn't something that I really fully believed.
Isn't that so funny? Because it seems like a simple concept. I can do what I want to do, but fuck, we all just get so buried with like
limiting
beliefs, false like restrictions and barriers that we think exist but don't. And just feeling like powerless, I guess.
Totally. And then realizing that it's all in your head, and it's just so you standing in your own way.
So much of it.
And it's such a difficult thing for the ego to process, that like the initial stages of doing this work were so uncomfortable. We're so uncomfortable. I cried like
a lot.
And on the phone calls that I had with Catherine, like my voice was always like shaking and always so emotional and like, I'm like,
that's like
scared.
And now you know that was like a pretty surefire sign that you were like on to some major shifting.
I think what I would compare it to, that a lot of people can like relate to and understand, is like having butterflies like for a romantic relationship with somebody, and just being like wanting something or someone so badly, and just knowing that like it might not work out like in that way, and it could be really disappointing and really so humiliating, scary. Or like and you just have to say fuck it and do it anyways to satisfy that curiosity that just would not shut up. Like over the years that I worked at Henry's, it was like, why aren't you going after it? Like, why aren't you? Why don't you try?
Well, this is like something that this is like a concept that like I really I like to think about a lot. I was actually listening to Brene Brown's new podcast yesterday about leadership, and she talks about this concept too, and it was like it really it drilled it in for me. But it's like the idea of discomfort and how we as humans tend to like stray away from anything that feels like remotely discomforting. So it's like if something feels uncomfortable, like do not do it. It's probably scary and bad. And I don't want to feel uncomfortable ever. I just want to stay where I feel comfortable because it's so safer and it's easier. But really when you're feeling that discomfort, typically that means that you're in like a situation where you're about to like experience growth. Right? And so like putting yourself in uncomfortable situations is how you grow.
Oh, you know, I'm about to drop a quote right now.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it, baby.
I was just thinking about the one we were talking about yesterday. Successful people are in the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do.
Yes.
And nobody likes to feel uncomfortable, right?
No.
But if you don't push yourself to be uncomfortable at times, you might not get to experience the success that you really want.
Exactly. So it's about like that awareness, I think, that's like, I feel really uncomfortable right now. Maybe I feel scared or like insecure, whatever it is. But being aware enough to know like, it's okay because like I'm going to push through this and then it's going to be so good on the other side, like so good.
Exactly. So working with Catherine in that coaching program, I learned that that's a thing, first of all. I learned how to like process it and do it. And then I learned that I'm always going to be doing that if I want to be. Like, I'm going to be doing it on a repetitive basis, continual basis.
Thing, right? Even when you grow, you're still going to hit that all the time. So you're going to keep either you're going to keep growing or you're going to like hit the ceiling, right? But it never goes away.
It doesn't go away. No. And in a couple of the sales meetings that we had initially for Founder, I remember like my gut was going crazy and I was just like, oh yeah, this is that uncomfortable feeling. You're right on time. You're like, I forgot that you were going to show up, but here you are. And it makes total sense that you're here.
You again.
Yeah. And
let's do this.
I recognize you. I see you. Thank you. And I'm just going to move forward, you know, and have this meeting. And and we did close the sale in that meeting, just for the record.
Just saying.
Just for the record.
It's funny. It's like sometimes you have to remind yourself to like find the joy in that. Like when you're like going to a meeting where you're going to pitch something brand new that you just created to somebody that you really respect. Catherine was the person, by the way, the mindset coach Shannon was talking about.
We're each other's clients now.
And I'm also in the mindset coaching program. So that was scary as fuck.
That meeting?
Yeah.
I'm glad I wasn't alone thinking that.
Oh my God. I was so nervous. But like when you're in that situation, so you're presenting or like, for me, like speaking in front of people, like I find that both nerve-wracking and really fun at the same time. So when you're like, I'm really uncomfortable, but I'm going to like have some fun with this and enjoy the fact that I feel uncomfortable because I know this is a big deal.
Yes. Okay,
and like, that's a good thing.
Yeah, that is a good thing. That is a good thing. I didn't have awareness around that. And to me, like, for the longest time, I didn't have awareness around that. In that meeting, I did, luckily. But that's kind of goes back to what we were saying a minute ago, where it's like, I could have easily had that, like without that awareness, I could have gone into that meeting, had that nervous feeling and been like, fuck it, I'm not doing that again. That didn't feel good. And it felt good at the end because I pushed through it. But like before having that awareness, it really would have like been a reason to quit. Like, But so
but you didn't.
I didn't. So working with Catherine, I developed that, I created my portrait business, and I did that for like, I still do it. Started that in like 2018, shortly after starting to work with Catherine. And again, it was just like so personal. The work that I was doing was so personal because I was personally like an entrepreneur at the beginning of my journey. And that's who I wanted to help, because I kind of understood what they were going through, and decided that I would focus on working with women who are entrepreneurs, essentially.
Yeah.
And
that's your niche.
And that's my niche. And I always thought with a niche, for some reason I had the impression that having a niche was a negative thing, because like you're ruling so many things out.
You're limiting yourself.
Yeah, you're limiting things. But really what I learned from allowing myself to like have a niche was that you spend more time doing similar projects, and therefore get really
better at them,
really good at it. Yeah, get better.
You're
really
specializing, right? You're like becoming an expert in something.
Yeah,
and that's like people want to hire you for that reason, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I didn't really realize that. And that's one of those things. Yeah, niche out. One of those things where I felt like in my journey, anyways, I had to learn that through experience. And I had to believe what Catherine was saying about it being like a positive thing.
Yeah.
Like kind of scrap my own beliefs, believe what she was saying, and just try it out. And now I'm able to see it for myself that was a really positive thing for me to do.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I've been really enjoying doing that for the last few years, and it was it was great when like I heard from you, because like so many of the people that I'd been working with up until that point were from the mindset coaching program, because we're all like kind of entrepreneurs in that, like a lot of entrepreneurs in that program.
Well, it's such a great community too. Like everyone just automatically supports each other.
Exactly. It's like, it's almost like if you need anything, you want to look within that group first. Yeah. Yes. And it's kind of just like a common thing that I think naturally occurs. It's not like there's a rule, like if you join the club, you have to hire people from within the club. There's nothing like that, but it's just like kind of an organic thing that happened. And I ended up working with mostly women from that group. But when I started to have people that weren't in that group approaching me, that felt like the foundation was like really established, and it was real. Because like the first parts of it felt like, I often say, like self-employment at the beginning often feels like unemployment.
Oh my God, I love that, because it's so true.
Because you don't have like a client to work for, especially like all the time necessarily, but there's a lot of other like groundwork that goes into it.
Yeah, and you're kind of like left to your own devices.
Yeah, like, left to your own devices. You don't have a boss or a deadline.
You have to create your own schedule.
Yeah, and it's anyways, navigating all of that stuff was like wouldn't have been fun if I didn't really want what I was working for.
Okay, again, camera. Had to turn the camera back on. So sorry about the pause there. So where were we? We were talking about like big things.
Yeah, I think we were just talking about the portrait business and how it felt established when people outside of the group were contacting me, like people, who were like the friends of the people that I'd photographed in the group, saw the photos that were taken of them and were like, oh, I want one of those for myself. So
AKA people were noticing you and paying attention and admiring your work.
Yes, to put it. Yeah.
That is great.
Yeah.
That's like a whole shift, right? Like that's kind of like a next level.
Yeah, I think that's a quantum leap, I guess. Yeah. You could say. And definitely boosted my confidence. It was great. And then shortly after that started happening, we had a conversation about collaborating that turned into creating a production company.
What this is now,
Founder Productions.
Yeah. What, can you talk a little bit more about like when you decided to niche and like, why you chose the niche that you did?
It felt legit to me. First of all, in terms of just like the work, being a photographer, like, or just what I prefer, like being as a photographer, I kind of like a set where it's just like me and my camera and the other person, and there's not too much distraction in terms of like a ton of equipment to operate and like maybe a team to manage or direct as well. But really kind of like that intimate setting where it's just one person and the camera, it just like helps me think better, and I can really like let the creative juices flow.
Right. As opposed to having to deal with like a set and gear and like all this other stuff.
Yeah, which
like,
maybe at some point that'll flow as easily as just what I described, like being one-on-one with somebody with the camera. And maybe I'll get there, maybe I'll grow into that, but I just wanted to honor like what made me feel good, and that type of work like experience, like workflow felt really good to me.
That's amazing. Like that's like really good. Well, it's like good self-awareness, like knowing like when do I feel really good about what I'm doing, like, and feel really like at ease, I guess.
Yeah.
And also making the decision to be like, I'm gonna just do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't know, like, I mean, sometimes like they say knowing what you don't want is really helpful in understanding what you do want. And when I worked at the camera store, sometimes we'd have like really busy periods where I'd be dealing with a client and like on a sale, and like that took a lot of mental energy to do that, to focus on like how they were going to spend their money, right?
Yep.
And helping them in that sense. And a lot of times in those moments where I was like trying really hard to focus and help them, there were like a lot of like peripheral things going on, like colleagues needing to borrow the demo camera that I was using, or like another customer like saying, when are you going to help me? And like, you know, things like that. And I found it like really, I kind of felt stressed out in those moments and didn't love how I felt. And I was like, well, if I have the choice, I would curate it this way.
Be alone in a room.
Yeah.
One customer at a time.
One person at a time, and really give my full attention to this one
interesting.
thing.
Yeah.
And I always felt like regardless of what I tried, what I was doing there, whatever my goal was in the moment, I felt like I couldn't accomplish anything without a lot of interruptions.
Right.
And that didn't feel awesome to me. So when I learned that I could do like whatever I wanted, I was like, well, I'm going to set it up this way because this is how I feel good, or like this is a scenario where I feel good and feel like I'm really able to put like my full energy and attention towards one thing without tons of interruptions.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm glad I set it up that way. It felt really good.
Yeah, again, really good self-awareness.
Thank you.
Of what you need
Thanks.
to like do well.
Yeah, and it wasn't part of my programming at that point. In fact, I thought like if you're working, from my experience, if you're working, then you're like not entitled to being comfortable or something like that.
Right.
Something along those lines. If you're at work, you're serving everybody else when they need to be served, and
Don't
that's
think
your
about
job.
your own needs.
And don't think about your own needs in this moment, right?
Yeah.
And I really didn't have an understanding around the fact that like, oh, other people are going to experience a better version of me, a better service of me if I feel good first.
Right.
Like if I feel good first, which I didn't fully learn how to do there because I wasn't as motivated to learn that there. I just wasn't as motivated to learn that there.
Oh my gosh, that's such an interesting point, actually. Yeah, even in the photography work, like I'm sure there were points where you were doing the same thing, like just pleasing the client, like making sure they're comfortable, but not being like I don't know. I feel like when you're doing
too.
Yeah, like or like if I'm not comfortable and like calm right now, then I'm not going to do my best work either. So it's like it's in everyone's best interest. So if you're like in the middle of a job, like a photo job, and you're like, I just need a minute to like just take a break and like kind of recalibrate. But when you're kind of in it, you don't necessarily think about that, or you don't think that that's important, or you don't want to inconvenience the client that's paying you to be there or whatever. But that kind of a confidence of being like, no, I really just, I need like 10-minute break.
Yeah.
You know, I've been shooting for 2 hours. I need a 10-minute break to just refresh, eat something, have a drink of water. And that's okay.
And it's okay. Yeah. I'm a human. That's
You're
okay.
a human, and you need that if you want to like keep producing good work.
Exactly.
And I think like from the client's perspective, having someone that's like, sorry, I just need to take a break, or you know, whatever request you have to like for yourself. Like I think from the client's perspective, it's like, okay, like they obviously value what they're doing. They know like what they need to do to like keep doing good work. Like instead of someone that's just like kind of like following every order and not taking the initiative to like do what they need to do for themselves to do the best work.
Yeah, totally. I like, and for anyone who's listening too, it's like you can do both. You can be at service to someone else and experience joy and like feel like your cup is full too. Like,
totally. Yeah. And that really it comes with experience. Like, you know, like where you're like, oh, I know that like I burn out after like 6 hours of shooting if I don't take a break in the middle and eat something. And I know that I'm going to do a shitty job by the end of that shoot if I don't take that break.
Yeah, exactly.
I keep using a break as an example, but like it could be anything, right? Yeah. Like maybe you need like, sometimes like for myself, I notice like sometimes I just need a minute to just like take it in and like get my vision straight. And like I can't necessarily like communicate that out loud. Like I just need to be in my head for a minute to just like really take in what's going on and make sure that I'm like thinking it through before I'm shooting. And that is something that's really easy to like overstep. If you're feeling like rushed or you're feeling like you have to be communicating everything that's going on inside your head.
For sure. Because so the optics of that, if you're in your head and you're just like creating a vision or taking in the scene, the optics of that can be misconstrued. Like the client might think you don't know what you're doing or you don't know what you want to do. Yeah. Instead of like appreciating the fact that the vision's coming, it's being formed. Yeah. And so it's like, that is important, and it's important to communicate it too. It is. Yeah.
I'm not just standing here staring blankly at this like tree.
No, I know what you mean though. I didn't imagine that was the case, but it's like if you don't communicate it, then they can't be sure that that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, no, they're not in your head.
And that's something that I learned through experience only, because alternatively, going back to like thinking that like I wasn't entitled to certain things. I would have been like, oh, I need to just have the idea, or I just need to start already because that's what's being expected of me, instead of just saying, no, it's okay. I just need a minute to like figure out the vision, and that's going to be like for the greater good of how this project turns out. Yeah. And as the professional, I have like every right to kind of put that out there and say that. And it's not something to feel like worried about how the client will perceive it, because when they understand that, they're like, hell yeah, thank you. Yeah. Like they're grateful, you know.
Thank you for telling me you needed to take a break.
Yeah. Or thank you for telling me you're developing the vision.
You needed time to get the vision straight. Yeah. That's really important.
That's really important. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've really kind of like come into yourself as a professional photographer. Like.
Yeah, I think so. I feel very confident now, and like when I would first, when people were like, what do you do for work? I'm like, I'm a photographer. But like worried that they were going to go, oh my God, like want to look at my website or something that I didn't have, or like look at my.
Or you almost felt like an imposter. Like, yeah, I'm a photographer. Yeah. Like, well, are you? Well, what do you shoot? Like, that they're going to just like come at you with all these questions, like, prove it.
I know. And I think at the time, like, in the earlier years of that, I was like, I felt like they wanted me to prove it when they would ask me questions. But really, like, as I've kind of progressed, I realized that it's truly coming from a place of interest, because it's not like the most common profession. Like a lot of people choose not to do photography for all of those like standard reasons why.
But like, you did.
But I chose to.
You have the guts to do it and proclaim that you're a photographer.
And some people have an appreciation for that thing, and then they want to know like what it's been like or what it is like. And now I love talking about it. So anytime anybody asks me questions, I'm like, please just go on.
Yeah, I'll talk about it all day.
Yeah, exacally. Keep them coming.
That's awesome. Yeah. What a cool, like kind of coming of age thing in your career.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. I love talking about it now. And I think a big part of that is the fact that I like pushed through and gained this experience and deeper understanding of what this all means to like take on a risky job like this.
A risky job.
A risky job.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. One was, if you could go back in time to a moment in your life, like professional life, personal life, whatever, where you were like super lost, And so you're going back in time as yourself as you are now. What would you tell yourself in that moment to kind of get you through it?
Keep your eye on the prize. Like, decide what the prize is for yourself. Like, define what that prize looks like for yourself, because it's different for everybody else. And keep your eye on it, and just go for it. And realize that you're gonna have doubts. Your faith is gonna be tested, but it's all gonna be worth it, because it's what you really want, and you will get there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So like, that's advice you would give to somebody that's maybe like feeling lost?
I guess it depends in which way. If we're talking about career, then yeah, that's what I would say for sure. I mean, I think it's relevant in every case too, but sometimes depending on the matter, it might be like not the right like sentiment to like help someone through something, but I think it have the power to help people with anything that they're dealing with challenge wise, but in certain cases it just might not be what they want to hear. That's fair. So it's different depending on everyone and their situation. I mean, if I could be so blunt, I would definitely just say that to everybody in any case of challenge.
Eye on the prize.
Well, I think the important part is like decide what the prize looks like for you.
And so where do you see yourself going from here? Where do you see what does future Shannon look like?
Well, that's a really good question. I really want to, like, I have been for the last little while, been putting like most of my energy into the production company, which has been great. I think like what's next is that, like, as I grow and progress in this career, what's going to happen is that I start to work with people that are further along in their journey as well, which I think could translate into like maybe bigger, more meaningful assignments, which makes me feel really excited to like kind of like experience a new challenge like that. And it could very well be the opportunity for me to learn how to manage some distractions and not necessarily just be like one-on-one with people anymore. So like, I think growing in terms of like becoming a leader in this industry, like that's where I see myself going with it. Because it's not like what we both know from this coaching stuff is that it's never going to stay the same. Like, it's got to go one way or another. And like, because I know I have the choice, that's where I would like to see, that's where I want it to go.
Amazing. And one more question for you. Do you have like a dream client? If you could pick anyone in the world to shoot, who would it be?
Oh my gosh. I feel like there's so many amazing people out there, but I think like one of the things that has made me feel like really good has been photographing other photographers. So I feel like if someone like Annie Leibovitz or something like that wanted to have a portrait done by me, I'd be like wildly flattered.
Right, because not only is she amazing, but she understands the craft completely. And obviously loves the way you do it enough that she wants to hire you.
I think that would be a massive compliment.
Amazing.
And a really fun thing to do, because she's just awesome. But,
Putting it out there,
universe.
Putting it out there. We'll add her to our shit list.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for opening up and sharing your journey.
Thanks for all the questions. You know how much I love them now.
I
could do this for the rest of the day if the camera would stay on.
Right, but it just won't.
So I guess we'll have to end it now because of the camera.
Only because of the camera. Yeah, well, that was fun.
Thanks for those questions.
Thanks for listening. And I guess in the next episode, we're going to swap spots and you'll interview me.
Hopefully you like being asked questions as much as I do.
I think it'll be fun.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Until then,
thanks everyone. See you next time.